From losing twice at Glory Kickboxing to being knocked out by Alex Pereira at UFC 281, Adesanya's record against Poatan is 0-3. But will he be able to win the rematch at UFC 287? Well, to answer that question, I need to go over Izzy's 3 losses to the guy. And honestly, it's insane to think that the last stylebender has lost even once, let alone 3 separate times. Yeah, needless to say, these weren't one-sided fights in the slightest. The first 2 losses Adesanya took to this guy were back in his kickboxing days at Glory. And just by the way, Izzy's kickboxing record is 75 wins and 4 losses. So this guy was an elite fighter at every level.
20 seconds to go on the ride.
I don't know, Joe.
Punts him with an elbow.
Oh, he's hurt, man.
Oh, another knockdown.
Wow.
Israel Adesanya.
Still, 2 of his 4 losses came at the hands of Alex Pereira. Now, the first one's kinda controversial, and it's for a number of reasons. For one thing, the judges seem to be scoring in favor of Pereira, even though Izzy was doing very well. A lot of people think Adesanya was robbed in that first one. But hey, Alex made sure to silence the doubters in the rematch. Yup, Israel's second loss to the Brazilian came by the way of an insane knockout. Now again, to be fair, the future middleweight legend was dominating the entire fight until Alex caught him with a deadly combo. These losses were pretty devastating, but Adesanya moved on to MMA and started dominating the middleweights. But unfortunately for Izzy, his Brazilian rival wasn't far behind. Yup, Pereira also moved to the UFC after a few years, and suddenly, there was a guy in the middleweight division who had beaten the apparently invincible Adesanya twice. And that too, once by KO. Yeah, you can bet Dana was seeing those dollar bills in the future, because everyone knew a fated clash between these 2 men would be huge. And you can guess what happened next. In the words of Tony Ferguson, Alex got that Dana White privilege and got rushed through the ranks of the division. Just like that, at UFC 281, this man was facing off against Izzy in their first fight in the UFC and 3rd fight overall. Now, at this point, the middleweight king had an insane amount of title defenses, and despite his losses in the past, no one could see him losing. Yeah, Bisping, Chael, all the regular suspects. All of them spoke out about how Izzy was going to retain his title, but as you guys all probably know, that didn't happen. Nope. In fact, fans saw an exact repeat of their last match. Izzy dominated all the way through and got brutally TKO'd in the very final round. But for all you stylebender fans out there, don't worry. The ex-champ has talked about how he's hopeful about the rematch. Yeah, he isn't letting the 3 losses weigh on him. In fact, he's more motivated than ever to fight Pereira. And I mean, it makes sense, guys. As long as Izzy doesn't freeze up out of fear of being KO'd again, he's definitely the better fighter out of these 2. Also, Adesanya himself talked about this when he was asked what his game plan for the rematch was gonna be. He's just gonna keep calm and keep the same energy as he had when he was beating Poatan throughout their whole fight.
Expect the championship experience of Adesanya to start to take form and show itself.
Yeah, look at the big, deep breaths from the challenger. Oh, that was a good elbow from the bottom.
With all of their fights, Izzy seems to be beating Alex the whole time, until suddenly he's not. And you can be sure he plans on going all the way and getting that win in this upcoming clash. Still, given that he's lost 3 times, is there really any way he's going to be able to win at UFC 287? Well, it's definitely a real possibility, guys, because in all 3 of those fights that the last stylebender lost, the man was winning the whole time. And he wasn't just winning, he was dominating, especially that last fight. Adesanya almost KO'd Poatan at the end of the first round, and the man was saved by the bell. On paper, Alex is definitely ahead, but I can't stress this enough, guys. Izzy is good. He's lapped one of the most competitive eras of the middleweights.
Oh! Knockdown for Adesanya! Costa trying to recover! That is it!
and he's beaten most of the top guys. This man's the most dominant champ at 185 since Anderson Silva, and anyone who knows anything about the fight game isn't counting him out. Also, there was something else at play as well in Izzy's last loss to his Brazilian rival. His leg was injured so much that he couldn't move properly, and fans all know how much the ex-champ relies on his footwork. It's one of his most powerful weapons, but the man got unlucky as he was hit in exactly the wrong spot on his leg. And as amazing as Alex is, this injury definitely played a huge part in the Brazilian's win. Yeah, if Adesanya's legendary footwork is at play in the next fight, all the way to the end, it's very likely he's gonna win. And I'm not the only one who believes so, because Daniel Cormier seems to be implying the same thing. The legendary double champ of the UFC doesn't think the 0-3 record's a big deal. He actually went as far as to say that no one really thought Pereira won the first one anyway. So it's actually 1-2, and the 2 times that Alex won, he was being beaten and outclassed the entire fight. Now, I've gotta say, he hasn't made an official prediction, but from these comments, he definitely seems to be leaning toward Izzy. And there's another MMA pro who seems to be in that same boat. He's none other than Michael Bisping. And it seems like no one knows how the rematch is gonna go, because none of these big MMA commentators are saying anything definitive. Still, Bisping did seem to give Izzy the edge. The guy talked about how Adesanya was winning all 4 rounds when the last round of that fight at UFC 281 started. So he definitely acknowledges that Stylebender has the potential to beat Poatan. But he did mention that one way Adesanya could increase his chances was to invest more heavily in wrestling. And again, it makes perfect sense, because fans saw how easily the ex-middleweight king was dominating the novice MMA fighter, Poatan, on the canvas. Now, other pros have also spoken up about how they think it's all gonna go down, and one of them's Henry Cejudo. Yep, the king of cringe is a triple champ, 2 weight divisions in the UFC, and an Olympic gold medal. This man's a beast, and he knows exactly what he's talking about. And just like Bisping and DC, Cejudo didn't give an official prediction. The guy was torn between the 2 fighters. I mean, it makes sense. Adesanya's definitely the better striker and the superior MMA fighter overall. But as fans have seen twice before, he seems to have especially bad luck against Poatan. And Cejudo pointed this out exactly when he talked about how despite how good Izzy was, Pereira had that one-punch KO power, and all he had to do was catch Izzy once. Now, despite all of these halfway predictions, one guy did come out and say something more solid. Yep, Sean O'Malley came as close as any of these guys ever will at making a prediction. He talked about how Izzy definitely knows how to win against Poatan, and he's also got the skills to make it happen. But then, it's also true that losing 3 times will take a toll on the guy's mental game. As far as Sugar's concerned, it's gonna be a tough fight for both men. And while anyone could win, the American bantamweight star seems to think it's gonna be Izzy. That's it for whether or not Adesanya will beat Pereira at UFC 287.